Hello everyone and welcome to the next in the series of Heads Up, and today I'm very excited to introduce you all to Sharon Schurder. Now Sharon I came across on Instagram, the beauty of social media. She was being reposted by lots and lots of people for the things that she was talking about to do with women and to do with empowerment, and I finally said I have to get her on the next series of Heads Up. So here she is, and I'm very excited to have you. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you for having me.
So, Sharon, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am London born and bred, grew up in a frum orthodox community in Hendon, and have lived in Israel and South Africa, so to add to variety of my life, but now back in London. So
when were you in South Africa?
When I first got married, I actually quit working, and my husband was learning there, in a yeshiva there. Yeah, so we were there for a year.
What was that like?
So cool. Oh my gosh, I would go back there in a second. It was really cool, but yeah, it was really cool.
Wow.
The sun shines all day. Yeah.
Very different to London.
Yeah, it was so nice.
Very nice. So after you finished high school, you went to Israel for the year, and then what did you do afterwards? What was your next stage in life?
So actually I did, the reason why I'm all into female empowerment, etc., is because I grew up in quite an orthodox setting, and I still am, but I found already when I was younger that I didn't really I wasn't really given many opportunities. It's quite a set path, especially with my world. Like, you get married, you grow up, you finish school, you go to SEM, you go for a year in Israel, and then you come back, and then you try quickly get married, and you quite quickly have children, and that's it, tick box, you're done for life. I was never particularly rebellious, but I was always up for trying new things. So already in high school I did art college, because my teachers for economics that I was doing, they didn't give me a teacher. Well, the teacher I had fell off a cliff, broke both legs.
Oh my gosh.
But then they decided that I didn't need economics. The school decided I was a girl, and that I didn't need economics for my future, so they didn't give me a teacher. Which meant that I had loads of free time. So my mum said, let's make a deal, and if you don't tell anyone, Sharon's going to go to art college every Friday, and in return then she'll just study the economics syllabus by herself. So already by the time I finished high school, I actually had both my A-levels and my art qualification, which was fine art and graphic design, which was amazing. So then I went to SEM, and then my story is quite a funny one, because I was like, oh, I'm going to go to university. My parents were like, no, you can't go to university, it's terrible, don't go to university. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll try it out. So then I was going to do maths because, I don't know, it sounded interesting. And then in SEM, the guy that I was speaking to said, oh yeah, you've got your A-levels, why don't you do banking and finance? Because it's just more, the course is just more, what's the word? It's not theoretical, it's...
Right, more practical.
Practical. Right. It's just more practical, and it'll be fun. So I was like, okay. So yeah, so I did banking and finance, and that was kind of what I did after university. Yeah.
And how did you find going to university as a openly frum?
I cried.
You found it difficult?
I found it so hard. I know you've got a varied audience. I found it so hard. So the first year, I'd never spoken to boys in my entire life. Very segregated. And so, already the concept of university with mixed, and guys used to
groups with people, right?
It was just a whole different ball game. Guys used to poke me with pens and be like, Jew girl, Jew girl, Jew girl, because I wouldn't speak to boys, and they were so angry about it, and they were just like, Jew girl, Jew girl. I'm still friends with those people today because it just worked out that way. I'm still friends with them because after a while I was like, yeah, okay, what do you want from me? Yeah, fine, I'll talk. They just were so angry at that I wasn't friends with all of them.
For you to
oh my goodness,
bubble into the wider world.
Into the wider world. It was crazy. It was crazy. I did so many things socially wrong in terms of, I never interacted with the opposite gender, so I learned a lot. But then after a while, you get used to it, and it's really not a big deal. So I do when it comes down to it. So yeah, I did. Yeah, university was crazy, but by the end of it, I really enjoyed it. And then again, like I met someone, and then they were like, "Oh, why don't you do management consultancy?" Because it gives you, within the banking world, because it gives you variety, because then you just get to move around different banks and try out different things, and I'm always up for learning, so I thought great, so I did that while doing art. But again, like, people always tell you, no, you can't do two things at the same time, like you have to choose your path. So I said, okay, I'm going to choose banking as my path. But I guess all along the line, it was like, oh my gosh, Sharon, she's such a rebel, blah, blah, blah. But then like people would meet me in the community and be like, okay, it's really not that exciting. I hadn't, you have these ideas of what it is for, women to be in the outside world and et cetera, et cetera. But people said, oh, you're not going to get dates. I got plenty of dates. Like,
was it quite unusual within your family and your community to be in this environment?
Oh, massively so. But yeah, it was massively so. But all my parents cared about was me being able to get married. And in that arena, I always had dates. They were all wonderful guys. It just didn't work out. So then,
as long as you were still getting the shidduch suggestions, they were happy for you to continue on this rebellious path of going into banking.
Yeah, they were happy. So that was like,
so then you were working in banking, and then eventually you found the guy and you got married. And then we have the next chapter.
A whole nother chapter.
Another chapter.
So then I got married, and my husband wasn't so comfortable with me working. He wasn't from, I don't think we even discussed it while we were dating, that I would continue working. He remembers the story differently, so I need to caveat that. We had a whole fight, and I was like, I'm going to continue working. He was like, let's discuss that once we're married. So when we got married, I stopped working. We moved to South Africa, and then a whole nother chapter in my world, and that was at 25 years old. So it was very old for like my world, but in the grand scheme of things, it was 25 years old. So it was very young. So we moved to South Africa. I got ill. I was pregnant. I got very ill from hyperemesis, and then. Hyperemesis is you throw up like really badly during pregnancy. You're in hospital attached to a drip because you can't eat anything. You lose tons of weight. It was really dreadful. But then, and then we moved back to London. But the baby was always fine, etc., etc. And then at 8 months pregnant, our eldest daughter was born stillborn.
Oh my goodness!
Like totally, no one had any reason. There was no reason for it. It was just. 50% of stillbirths are a miscarriage is like pre-24 weeks, and then stillbirth is anything after. And what that means is like the baby needs to get buried, you have to have a proper delivery, you need to go through all the standard like death type stuff. You just don't have shiva, you don't have that kind of thing. Although as the years have progressed, I've researched into it, and that's a whole other topic. But anyway, so it was like that was the crazy. But again, like it fed into this whole female empowerment thing, which is like everyone just turned around and was like, okay, well, you just have more children, like it's not a big deal, like move on. Like people were just like so sad, but like move on, you'll be fine, you'll have a whole big family, it'll be fine, it'll be good. And like there was that constant thing of, I guess I'm very stubborn. If you tell me to do something, I won't do it. I won't do it. So everyone's like, oh, well, move on, just forget about it. And I'm like, well, I don't want to forget about it. It's a grieving process. It's such a big deal. So then I tend,
it's an absolute trauma. Yeah, your body, first of all, your body physically has to get
you have milk, you have everything. You had the pouch. Right. Like the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, giving birth when you're pushing out a dead child is probably like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It was like the most ridiculous situation ever. You're going through the whole, and it was hilarious because people were like, "Oh, you didn't really have proper labor."
Oh my! People said that.
Yeah, of course. The whole time people say,
"Oh my goodness,
you didn't have a proper labor." And like 5 years later, when I had my son, guys, I had a proper labor. Like I remember this all. Yeah, my labor when I was pushing out. Yeah,
I think this is as a side point. This everyone watching should understand how the words that we say make such an impact. And obviously, I think often when we're in these terrible situations where we
don't know what to say,
and we have family members that go through terrible things, we often don't know how to respond because we've never been in that situation. And even if we have been, everyone reacts differently. So people don't know what to say because they're just so, shocked themselves. But really, I mean, these words are massively impactful. And the fact that you still remember them and you still remember the comments years later shows that, it's crazy. Wow. Gosh,
it was shocking. It was shocking, but it was also so liberating in the sense of there's a route and path that we like to take, like certain direction of story, a journey. And if our lives don't go along that traditional path, people freak out. And then they don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. And they just try and veer you back into the path that's, expected.
That's normal, right?
That's normal, just to make, and it was such, and then, so I started painting again, but like really painting, just tons and tons. Like for my
you sort of step back from the art world.
Because everyone said you can't do both. So I was like, so and even you can't do both, and you can't be working full time, and you can't be married at the same time, and you can't have this. I was like, okay, I'm listening. These are all really wise people, so I'm going to listen to what everyone has to say. But actually, the stillbirth triggered something in me, which is like, actually, sometimes people, their opinions and wisdom are really valid, but they're not necessarily applicable to your life. And that was that moment where everyone was telling me, move on, it'll be okay, blah, 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 blah. You'll forget about the baby in a year, etc., etc. And suddenly it was like, okay, well, actually, that's not my truth and that's not my story. It might be for other people. Other people, have children straight after, they have their rainbow babies and they forget about the stillbirth and etc. And they're all dandy afterwards. But for me, that wasn't the case. And like, my eldest is still like a very big part of my life. And that was when I guess I started forging my own path, kind of being like, okay, I'm going to be orthodox, I'm going to be religious, I'm also going to work full-time banking, I'm also going to run an art business, I'm also going to be married, I'm also going to have children, and let's see how it goes.
So what happened with the art? I remember reading a post that I think it was on Instagram, where you said how you went into a room and just painted for hours or something after you lost your daughter.
Yeah, I literally just there was nothing to do because I couldn't speak to anyone, and you go through the therapy and all that kind of thing, but I'm not really it just didn't work for me. There were the only way I could kind of connect back to like Hashem, to the community, you become such a thing happens, you become so detached and no one understands what you're talking about or what you're going through. And it's just literally, for us, it was like me and my husband and I, like against the world. And then everyone's like, oh, you were going to get pregnant straight away. But actually we waited another 5 years until we were blessed with our son. So it was a very detached period. The community has no space for couples that don't have children. Not in a mean way. They don't have space for people who are single. They don't have space for people who, unless you're following the traditional path, it's a very hard thing. So I literally would just paint. Like in the evening, my friends are all busy with their kids and stuff like that. And I came home from work and, well, I had plenty of time. On the weekend, I had plenty of time. So I would just paint, and just put, around my home, paintings of just like different pasukim, different quotes, trying to like come to terms with what we had been through and try and like find happiness in a very depressed, sad world. And yeah,
you said something very interesting. You said that there's no space for people that are not following the traditional path, and I think that is something that is often spoke about now, quite often, especially on social media. There are lots of people shouting about the fact that there's space for everybody, and we have to make space for people in every respect.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who is not following the traditional path, somebody that maybe isn't the typical orthodox Jew, so to speak, that's not in the little bubble that everybody wants them to be in? What would you say to them to give some sort of chizuk and inspiration to people that are struggling in that chapter of their lives, whatever that may be?
For me, it was make my own space. So I had to scream and shout, and I was very blessed in that I had my art business to scream and shout through, to make my own space. So
everyone should find passions that talk to individuals. And what would you say to everyone else who maybe are the people who are more living the more traditional life, and what would you say to those people who are watching?
It's really hard, because if you haven't experienced, we can never understand other people's experiences. And also, what's the expression? It's not what happens to you, it's how you view the world. I'm sure there's another cleverer way to say that. It's not what you see, it's how you see it. I don't know, something, whatever the point is, whatever the quote is, it's how you relate to the world. It's your mindset, and it's your relationship with Hashem, with God, and how you view, your world, your life mission, etc. So everyone is going to react to the same situation differently.
In a different way.
But for someone from a more traditional path, just like open your eyes. It's so hard when you're speaking. So for example, I got loads like, oh, you're focusing on your career now. It totally makes sense that you're not going to have more children because you want to focus on your career because you need to get a promotion at work. And I was like, So like that kind of thing from someone who, already for someone, okay, she's working, so she's clearly then not interested in it's very hard, because then you also don't want to not say anything. But also for someone who's not following the traditional path, you have to, I think, accept that stupid comments are going to be said to you, and either stand up for yourself or just shrug it off and know that what you're doing is the right thing for you. And very much what's happened with me is that, like, I know that Hashem, I know that God has kind of directed me down. It's very much, I can see that it's all been, a lot of stuff has happened, like crazy stuff that just like you couldn't have planned it. So I get it.
How did you, because I mean, a lot of people, if they would have been in your situation, would have grown quite angry with God for.
Oh, I was so angry.
So how did you overcome that anger, or have you overcome that anger? How do you?
Yeah. So that's also another thing, which is, I know it might sound terrible to say, but I really do feel like people who have been through experiences and then like have stuff to share with the world, you really need to only share it once you've processed it yourself and you're not holding on to anything residual. Because I often find, especially on social media, people talk about stuff, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, I went through this and now you can do it too. I actually only started speaking publicly, about my eldest being stillbirth and female empowerment and all that kind of thing. Once I had got to, like, I'm 32 now, so I've got to a stage where I'm very comfortable with what I'm up to, really don't care what other people think, because I know that I know that my husband and I, like, we have a set of values that we stick by, we work through everything together. If I'm not doing something aligned with my family, then got to sort that out. But if I'm not doing something aligned with Joe Schmo down the road, who's very upset that I'm coming home late and not putting my kids to bed, I don't really care. So that makes a massive difference. So so from my perspective, I think now that I was very angry with the community, and I was also very let down. We were really, really let down. We were both very innocent and cute and really trusted in our leadership, etc. And we were very let down in terms of like how our eldest daughter was buried and all that kind of thing. It was a ridiculous situation. I was very angry for a very long period of time. And then you realize that people are human and they make mistakes, and you kind of just accept that life sucks sometimes. And people suck sometimes, but people are also incredible and amazing, and the generosity and kindness and love that we received from people was out of this world. I had meals made for me for like 3 months after she died, for example, which to someone else may seem like ridiculous, but to me, like, I just lay in bed all day, like in shock. So it was perfect. Then like we could actually eat something,
right?
So people were so ridiculous on one side, and then people were also just so wonderful and incredible on the other side.
I think that's what human beings are. And again, part of it is that we don't always know how to behave in different situations. And but yeah, amazing. I mean, it's really, what you're saying is really interesting, because you keep talking about female empowerment. You talk about, this word, and I pick up on it because I saw it on your social media. So if you were to define what it means to be an orthodox female empowered person, what does that mean to you?
So I say female empowerment because I'm a woman and I see it from my angle, but I really do actually think it's empowerment from just an anyone angle. Like, everyone should feel empowered to be themselves. I'm very passionate that we've all been put onto this earth to fulfill a mission, to fulfill our tough kids, our purpose on this world. Like Hashem, God's given us all the tools, given us the crap, given us the challenges, given us the friends, given us the situations to fulfill our mission. And therefore, being empowered is appreciating that a lot of, I separate, I guess, religion and like community and tradition with like godliness and spirituality and Judaism.
Right.
Which I know is probably...
No, there's a phrase, isn't it? Don't judge Judaism by Jews. As in, Jews, people are human beings and people make mistakes and people don't know what to do. And people, you know, and we often learn, and often people who made those comments to you after knowing that they made those comments and they were awful, probably would never make them again. And we're human beings. But Judaism as a religion is a religion that is full of kindness and full of chesed and full of all these amazing things. And sometimes we as human beings don't live up to the expectations that Judaism puts in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about my unorthodox life because I watched it and I've got lots of opinions about it.
Yeah, what's your
I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours.
Yeah, no, tell me yours first.
No. Go on, I want to hear your opinion.
Oh, I think that there's a lot. So the reason why I'm into female empowerment is because it's, I think, an area in Judaism that is fallen behind. So we had the Sharon Schurder movement that created Jewish education for women,
right?
Which by the way,
was unheard of. I mean,
unheard of, and everyone forgets Beis Yaakov was like this scandalous organization. She didn't have she had backing from her particular rabbonim, but the rest of the world was shocked and traumatized and thought, you know, it's the end of European Jewry. And actually, she's created an incredible revolution.
We're all educated really because of Sharon Schurder.
Because of her.
The education would not be as it is. I think what you're saying before you move on, I think what the point of Sharon Schurder and what made her so revolutionary was that she still remained within the boundaries of halacha and orthodoxy. She went to her rabbis, she went to the people that she, you know, it was her advisors, and she asked them what to do, and they gave her their blessing. I think that's also really important. People often quote her and say, look, Sharon Schurder is a revolutionary. She was a scandal. She was a scandal, but she also was a scandal within the box, if that makes sense. A very big box. It was maybe a triangle shape rather than a box, but she did look to people to ask them her questions. She didn't just do it on her own and go off and do things, which I think is a really interesting and important point to make.
Important, because for me, there were so many things that I was told that I wasn't allowed to do. I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to do this. And then I actually sat down with my rabbonim and rebbitzins, who I trust, and said, okay, let's go, you know, let's get down to basics. Can I do this? Yeah, actually. Can I do? Yeah, that's fine. It's not socially acceptable, but from a halachic perspective,
right. That's also very interesting, because in some circumstances, what we view as normal because of, you know, where we live or, you know, schools, etc., is not actually bound by halacha. And I feel like you're such a good example of this. As somebody who wants, for some people, living their normal life that you quote about,
yeah, it's amazing. Most of my friends are always just like,
right, and that makes them happy and fulfilled, and that's incredible. Yeah. You know, that's amazing. But some people, that's not for everybody. And I think what you are, the reason I really wanted to speak to you is because you're an example of somebody that has not rejected Judaism. You continue to bring Judaism into your life, and Orthodox Judaism into your life, but you also, you know, stretch the boundaries, and you ask the questions and you do the things that you want to do, but you're, you know, not afraid to say, actually, can I do this? Is it okay for me to do that? I think it's really amazing, because I think sometimes people feel like you got to do everything or you're totally, you know, the other side. Yeah. I think that's what my unorthodox life for me is, I think, really sad. Sorry, you were saying, go tell me what you think first about it.
No, it's hilarious, because a lot of colleagues of mine contacted me. They're like, oh, you have to watch this program. It's just come out on Netflix. But you really must tell this lady, Julia, that you can be Orthodox and have a high-powered career.
That's amazing that they said that to you.
You really must tell her. Because look, my art business, like, it's so that I do on the evening and weekends, that's mad and hectic. Wow. And I have to, like, I've now had to like bring on more people to help me, because thank God I'm very busy. I do commissions. I send them, all around the world, and prints more, more affordable. So I'm very busy. I'm about to get a massive printer that's going into my home, because I just like, the demand is very much there. People want, I paint a lot, like it's very bold, very lavish, very
bold. I love the colours. They're amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Anyone that doesn't know Sharon, go follow her on Instagram. Her stuff is insane. Amazing.
So and it's just like, come on, female, to me, like, it's also just like, so I lived, and I, was like very much the female world was just, hiding. And like, if there was a man in the room, I would like hide away and like not speak until I was spoken to. No, but you just, that's how I was brought up. And then that's not halakhically accurate. So, and my paintings, ironically, it's a very interesting one. Art is a very interesting creative pursuit that is socially acceptable for women to do. Women can't sing or dance in front of men, but yet art you can do. Very interesting. And bold art as well is, well, again, I went on Golden Screen Road and I was showing them my art, and I do a lot of products as well. I'd Lacos Neris and colour boards and all that jazz, and they were like, yeah, but it's colours. So I come back, genuinely come back when it's gold or silver or brown. Really? But until then we can't sell it. This was when I started the business in 2015. You can't sell it, just it's a bit too colourful, it's a bit too out there. It's not really acceptable. And laughing, and now they're contacting me being like, can we sell your stuff? I'm like, well, I actually sorted it out now. So do you remember our conversation 5 years ago? So it's just, I guess I've never intended to push the boundaries, but I also really feel like life has a lot to give, and you just need to make sure that what you're doing is make sure what you're not doing is because of a valid reason for it.
Yeah. No, I think because when I watched my unorthodox life, I was cringing a lot because everyone was talking about it for, I watched it quite late, and I had all people talking about it, and I had very mixed feelings watching it. First of all, it's so cringeworthy. Like, the whole thing is just like, the things they discuss around the family table is just not appropriate for any family to be discussing. And like,
that was Netflix as well.
And I saw a very funny quote that said, just like the Kardashians are to America as whatever her name is, Hart is to Judaism, as in, don't judge Orthodox Jews by this one family. They're like the Kardashians. Like, Americans aren't like the Kardashians.
Yeah.
So like, that was, I found really interesting. But what I found the saddest thing, and like, look, a lot of what she said, I don't think is factually accurate. I think a lot of it is dramatized. Not saying
I disagree.
No, so I
disagree. I thought a lot of her stuff was like. So
I think some things that she was saying about what you were talking about, cultural stuff, but some things I think was a little bit dramatized, a little bit. But what I found just so sad was that it was just like all or nothing approach. Is that what you were saying? Is that she felt, it's very sad to me that she felt that she could not pursue her life's dream of being a big, successful, businesswoman and still be within the realm of orthodoxy. And that to me is really sad, that somebody felt that Judaism is so constricting, because Judaism is meant to be a living religion, something that's beautiful and living and loving. And the fact that we can't, is not like that, for some people is very, very sad. And that's why I love talking to people like you, who are able to show us that you can, and we can be successful people, but also live a Torah orthodox life.
Yes, but sorry, I'm going to be
go on.
I'm going to put a dampener on it. It's only because I was very blessed to have the support around me, but it's been otherwise very hard. So I totally respect and understand that she didn't feel that she was able to.
Right.
But what now needs to, because I don't have role models. Anyone who, has been someone who I could look up to has generally been someone who was outside of the community who then became more religious. And they had already achieved success. So it is slightly different. So I really do feel like from her perspective, I can relate. But what I think now needs to happen, it's 2021, her story doesn't need to happen again.
Right. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So I always end the same question to everybody. Yeah. I'm so good speaking to you. I always say, what would you want our listeners to leave with after hearing from you? What is the last bit of inspiration to keep our heads up for the month ahead?
I'm such a believer in making sure that everything around you is supporting you, cheering you on, and just in your best interest. So I really, whether it's what I'm incredibly passionate about is art. I really feel like making sure that your environment, your home is bringing light, etc. Your friends, your family. So just, you know, getting a sense check while things are calm in August, and just making sure that your world is conducive to an amazing, good life. And, you know, from a spiritual perspective, sorting things out, you know, if you need to build on your relationship with Hashem, with God, but just getting everything in check and looking after that, because things from the outside do filter in.
Thank you so much. It was
so
wonderful.
Thank you.
Everyone check out Sharon's art because it's amazing.
Yeah, SharonSchurderArt.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
See you. Thank you.
See you
join us the next month of Heads Up.